Okay, from the previous two videos, we have our queries. This one does a join and then a group and then an into, and this one just does a join with an into. And I told you that when we do a join with an into, it will also group at the same time. So this query is less efficient than this query. You can see I put the less efficient unhappy face there. This is the more efficient query. I have the happy face there. And then I also have them side by side. I put the unhappy version in this join then group method. The happy version is in this group while join. I'm using partial classes here, so it's all in the same class. So then in main, I can say, we'll do the join then group version, and then give me a blank line, and then, hey, do the group while join. And one thing I added is I said .take 5. I got tired of having all that data show up on the screen. I just said, hey, whatever 5 customers, the first 5 customers that show up, let's take those ones and figure out which ones have the most amount of orders. So if I run this, Control F5, you can see Christina, she did 18, Thomas 13, Antonio. This data set is identical to this data set. So both of these queries get the exact same result, but one of them is just more efficient than the other. In fact, if I close this and just get them lined up quite nicely, and let me highlight the queries. Here I'm going to highlight this query, and I'll highlight this query here. You can see that this query is textually shorter than this one because it doesn't have the group by. So anyway, the whole reason I put them side by side is because I want to translate them side by side so you can see side by side why the group by loses the scope of C and O, but we gain G. However, this version, we maintain C, but then we get O packed into a bunch of this customer orders, this sequence here. So let's translate the unhappy version first, and then we'll translate the happy version next. I'm going to get that out of there and scroll in here a little bit so we can see what's going on. Okay, we've seen this process several times. From C, we're introducing a query variable here. Let's just remember that query variable. We're also declaring our original source here. So I'll hit enter and comment this out, bring this back. And again, I'm just translating this exactly how the compiler would do. Dot, Control-Shift-U, join, open this up. The first thing we need to pass in here is the inner query source, which would be orders. All right, but before I uppercase this join and all that, that join introduced another query variable called O. So now we have C and O in scope. So just keep that O in your back pockets. I'm going to delete all that, put the comma here. We need the outer key selector. Customers here is the outer source. So the selector on that, we said the query variable is C. So I'll say C here, arrow, delete all this stuff here, and oh, look at that, that just falls into place, C.customerID. The reason why the compiler puts a C here is not because we said C here, but because we said C there. Moving on, another comma. This equals basically translates into a comma because now we need another selector, which you can't really see here, but it's the inner key selector, the inner sequence being db.orders, the outer sequence being db.customers. So recall that we had that O, we said join O, so the compiler inserts the O here, arrow, and I think we're good. The last selector you can't see off the screen, but I've shown you in previous videos, is the result selector. In this case, we get this customer with its order. The selector will be invoked once for every match it finds from any customer in any order. Lambda, let's pack those into an anonymous type that we'll use for transparent identifiers later. We've seen transparent identifiers in this playlist several times. Hopefully that's old hat. Okay, it's hard to talk and type at the same time. Let me go down here. The group by, real simple, dot, Control-Shift-U, by. I can get rid of this by here. What are we grouping? We're grouping O by C, but recall that group by requires its key selector to be the first argument. What are we grouping? We're grouping a sequence of these transparent identifiers. So I'll put TP here for transparent identifier, and the key will be TP.C. And we need an outer key selector, if I can find it, element selector. Element selector, that's correct. Well, it's TP again, and then we have TP.O for the order. And the group by also introduces another query variable, which is G. Recall that G is an I grouping which has a key and is a sequence. So anyway, keep that in the back of your head. We're done with this part. The let clause turns into a select statement. Dot select, or select call if you would. The input variable is G because we said we were going to group into G. And we will pack G away into another anonymous type. So here's G, and then number orders will be G.count. Look how that just falls into place. That's nice. But here is the point where we lose C and O. Oh, I guess O's gone, but we've lost C and O. All we have now is G. Okay, we have this transparent identifier, this anonymous type instance, or a sequence of anonymous type instances produced by select, where we pack G in here, and we have G there, but we lost C and O right here at the group by. We packed all of the O's into sequences, and then the C's became the key. Okay, recall that an I grouping is a key and an I enumerable. The C is the key, and then all these individual O's become elements in the sequence of that I grouping. So that's why they fell out of scope. We now have these groups with keys and sequences of orders. Let's go down here. Dot, Control-Shift-U. Control-Shift-U. We have descending out here, so I'll cut that and paste that right there. Order by Control-Shift-U. Descending. What's coming in? It's sequences of this transparent identifier. We had this transparent identifier here. This is a new one coming in. So I could reuse TP because TP is out of scope. But just to be explicit, I'm going to say this is the second anonymous type, if you would. Arrow TP2 dot num orders. You see num orders shows up there. That's quite nice. Moving on to the next line. Dot Control-Shift-U select. Transparent identifier 2. Order by didn't change anything and just said, here, I'll order by whatever you tell me to. The output sequence is a sequence of these transparent identifier 2. So we'll just keep going. Transparent identifier 2. Come in here, TP2 dot. Oh, look, there's G. TP2 dot. Oh, look, there's num orders. How nice. So there you go. We have translated that first query. We have a join, and then we have a group by. In fact, let me Control F5 this. Let's see, oh, what am I missing? A parenthesis somewhere? I forgot my parenthesis right here. I don't know why I put a. Oh, I do have a semicolon dot. Control F5. The results are still the same. Okay, let's go do the other query. Let's translate the other query, and hopefully through that process you'll see why we get C. We maintain C's scope. We lose O, and we also don't have the group by. So hopefully this will be shorter. The from introduces a variable here. In fact, let me get this. It's hard for me to read, so it's probably hard for you to read. From introduces the variable C into our source, so we'll comment this out. db.customers dot. Now, you'd think, as I did before, I just said dot join over here, but this join right here is followed by this into. So when the compiler sees that, it actually says GroupJoin. Okay, recall that we're grouping while joining, grouping while joining, grouping while joining. Let's be more efficient, and instead of join then group, let's group while we're doing the joining. So very cool. The arguments to GroupJoin are very similar to what we had over here. It's not going to change very much. There, let me scoot that over just a little bit more. First argument, you can't see it, but it's the inner sequence, which is again is db.orders. So let me delete this. Recall that we're introducing that O variable, though, that I just deleted. And then we have the outer key selector. You can't see that off the screen, but the outer key, well, it's customers, isn't it? So C, we introduce C with the from here. C, arrow, C dot, customer ID. All right, let's be a little more efficient here. Oh, I didn't need to do the C.customer ID. I already had the C.customer ID. I don't need to type that, and neither does the compiler. The compiler does not insert that. Equals, okay, well, we introduced O, like so. O.customer ID. And then we have this into. And this is where it gets a little interesting. Let me drop a comma there, and come back up here. And again, we get our C and we get our O, but instead of getting one O, recall before we got our C and our O, with a group join, instead of getting just a C and an O, we get the C, or the customer, with all of that customer's orders. All right, here on the left, this is a customer with one of his orders, or one of her orders. Either way, it's one customer with one order. But with a group join, we grouped them. Okay, I have a customer with all that customer's orders. All right, so I'm actually going to say O's, right? Customer orders. And just like before, we're going to pack this into an anonymous type for transparent identification later in our translation. But recall we had that into out here. I guess I moved it down here. Here's the into this customer's orders. So instead of saying O's, I'm going to say this customer's orders is the list or sequence of orders. Okay, the list of O's. Right, that looks like O's, doesn't it? But anyway, it's O's. So now we have C, and we have this customer's orders. And this customer's orders was introduced by the into. Right? And the rest is pretty much the same as what we did before. Let num orders equals this customer orders.count. Well, a let is just another select clause. Our transparent identifier for our anonymous type is coming in here. We need to use that transparent identifier to get a num orders variable. So new pack TP into this one, and then TP or num orders gets TP dot this customer's orders dot count. Close that up. Go down to the order by dot order by copy or cut paste descending. This is transparent identifier 2 lambda TP2 dot num orders is in TP2, so I can just close that off. Then moving down to the select dot select TP2 lambda, come in here TP2 dot TP dot, look, this is why we maintained C. Recall in our original query that we translated, we had C in scope. And the reason we had C in scope is because we take our original transparent identifier, which has C in it, and we keep going with it. We just take it and pack it into a new transparent identifier that keeps rolling on through. So I can say tp2.tp.c. Now I don't have O. I don't have O from the join because O was packed into all of this customer's orders. The O became this Oz thing, which we moved into this customer's orders. Anyway, going back down here to the select, I can say tp2.numOrders, right, but I don't need to type numOrders because it's already there. Put the parenthesis out here, and voila, we're done. We've translated. In fact, let's Control F5, just verify we get the exact same results for both queries. Very cool. All right, and let's compare them side by side best we can. Turn the video up to high definition. Boy, I can barely see that. I hope you can see it. But we have our customers, we join and we group at the same time, whereas this one we join and then we group. This version is less efficient because we're basically doing the exact same thing as a join, or close to it, with just doing the group by after doing the join. It's like you go clean the room and then I go clean the room again. It doesn't make sense. Here we say group join, it groups while joining. Then the rest of the query is the same. Okay, the rest of the query is the same, except since we pack TP into another transparent identifier, I can access C down here. Whereas in this case, I can't because all I get is G, C, and O disappeared up there. So there you go, side-by-side translation, happy version, sad version.